I'm so excited to give you a small glimpse into the chat that I got to have with my friend and colleague, Rose Vinci from Claritas Collective. I hope you take the next hour to listen to our conversation about allowing boundaries into your life, practicing your sea legs, and checking them out in this newfound world that we've all found ourselves in. So if you like what you hear and you'd like some further coaching, you can find her on all of her social channels at Claritas Collective. And you can always find us at all of our Oxygen links at Oxygen Coaching Group or the hashtag Breathe Life In. And please enjoy the next hour of our conversation about boundaries. And I hope you take just a little bit of time to breathe life in today. Bye, everybody.
Hello, my friend.
Hello.
I am so excited to do this with you today. I've been anxiously awaiting the chance to record this with you.
That's some big stuff to fill. I don't know. Can I fill those shoes?
I have all the faith in the world in you.
And I in you.
So I thought it might make the most sense if I introduce you to my audience, since we're going to roll this out to everyone and give them a little glimpse into your background, if that sounds fair.
Yeah.
So I get to see a wonderful side and a wonderful background in your family, but I know you as an experienced coach, author, speaker. You are the most loving wife and mother who helps clients fully live and discover the glory gifts in life: love, joy, peace.
Those are my things.
Those are your things. They are so you. That's it actually makes my skin tingle to describe you like that. In 2020, you founded Claritas Collective and provide clients with fully customized, life-defining coaching experience that gives rise to extraordinary results. I love that.
Thanks.
Proud of you.
Thanks. I sound so much cooler when you say all of that.
Oh, no. You entered my life at such a pivotal time. And I think that those words are so accurate.
Well, thanks. I love joy, and peace. I love helping people access them. And who doesn't want to live extraordinary?
Right?
Yeah. So do I get to do the same for you? Do I get to introduce you and tell the world who you are instead of you having? Okay. Yay. Well, we didn't really talk about how we met, but at least we've known each other for probably, do you know how long?
Really great question. Do you know? Are you asking me out of?
No, I really don't know.
I think 6 years maybe.
Yeah. So it's been a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know you from lots of different things, but I know you now as you now, the cat that founded and owns her own business coaching firm. Because, there's all kinds of coaches out there, called the Oxygen Coaching Group, right? And you founded it in 2017, originally just focusing on body and life skills, but really transformed into this amazing powerhouse executive coach, sales trainer, and all these other programs, right?
Yeah. It's crazy.
What was that?
It's crazy how it grows.
Yeah. And I would say most of your programs are really specific to anyone, like the professional or the side hustler, to be more productive, more aware, and a better employee, right?
Yeah. It actually sounds like I help people, huh?
I do well by you. Is that a good explanation?
So let's help right in so it doesn't.
I need that. Can I kind of coaches need coaches? That's it.
You know what? That's why we have each other. That's why we're such a great group. That's why we're a good team. So let's jump right in so that we give some good content today. So we started this conversation because I think about 18 months ago, we had all of these boundaries kind of forced upon us. And it was miraculous, right? Our calendars automatically cleared up. We were forced to remove play dates. We were forced to remove social hours, and we learned to do things from home, whether we actually like that or not, but there was no more waiting in line for school drop off or, hurry up and wait. And in fact, I heard myself say so many times, I lost a lot of things in that process that I'm happy to not go back to. I think I even maybe discovered online grocery shopping. I don't know if you've done that yet, but
Oh yeah.
hello, God sent.
Totally.
Go back to the normal, for lack of a better term, way of life. We have to kind of be careful we aren't going back to the things that weren't serving us well. So we're being given this unique opportunity to kind of exercise our sea legs, right? My dad always liked to say that to me, get out the old Navy jargon and exercise the sea legs, but which boundaries that we got to practice over 18 months, well over 21 days, that habit forming, we were definitely doing more than 21 days. What do we want to reinforce and keep in place now that the restrictions are out? And how do we do that well? What does that process look like? What does it feel like? And more importantly, how do we have some grace for ourselves as we work through this?
Yes. And yes. Like setting boundaries wasn't hard enough. And then whoosh, the last 18 months, some good, some bad ways of learning what I liked, what I didn't like, what boundaries I want to set, what boundaries I don't. But literally, I think, a lot of us are still in it going, what do I do? What is happening here? What I was actually thinking when I was thinking about us doing this, and I'm like, something really simple. Like, we think of boundaries in all types of relationships, boundaries with ourselves and what I'm going to do for the day, and boundaries with friends and family and coworkers and bosses and all this stuff, right? And I'm like, one simple thing. Before, the whole world changed, I said in my house, I had a rule. I work from home. If my office door was closed, no one entered. And that word was true. Like, everyone understood it and stuck to it. I have little boys. And then my son started learning at home. And then my husband started working at home. And then all of a sudden that boundary went out the window, and, people would come in and out. And frankly, they needed to, because we were all like juggling all these things and multitasking. So I think it's a really relevant topic. And I'm so glad you thought about doing this. And I feel honored to be here to do it with you.
I think it's one of those things we have to be so prepared to not just talk about the bad things, but the good things. You talked about your little ones coming in and how fortunate. I think we have to step back and realize how fortunate we all are to work from home. But I got my kiddos back at the dinner table. Teenagers, obviously we have kids in different stages of our lives. I got teenagers back at my dinner table. Heck yes. I mean, 9 times out of 10 in the rat race of life, teenagers don't sit down with their mom and have dinner, especially every night. And I got something back that today's society had said it was okay that we had gotten rid of. And we were pretty good. I mean, I've been a single mom for time, so we've managed a home schedule really well, busy schedules. Everybody gets to do what they want to do. I'm a pretty, you do you mom. But having my kids back, a graduating senior, a new driving child, just that age group, getting my kids back at my dinner table, I got something out of this. I got something back big. So
I'm excited too. Good. And we'll get to share it and talk about it. So it is really important, I think, obviously, and in my coaching profession, your coaching profession, I'm sure you agree, to identify how we struggle enforcing boundaries.
yeah.
Like, when it's something really good and it just kind of happens for us, we're like, ooh, I like that. But when we actually have to enforce it, identify it, it's a whole new thing.
For sure. For sure. We kind of have to wonder how we identify when we're struggling versus when, what does it look like? What does it feel like when we have to use our tools, get out our toolbox and say, hey, okay, this feels wrong. I don't like this. I need this to change, but I don't want anybody to dislike me. I don't want to upset the other person. I'm going to set my personal needs aside, right? The mom guilt or the dad guilt or the, wanting to serve others guilt, however that comes out in you. So how do we identify what that looks like?
Yeah. I think we've called it like getting off the crazy train.
That's so good. That is so good.
How do we do that? So one thing that I love to talk about is what I like to call like energy vampires. I call them vampires because vampires, they suck something out of you. So an energy vampire obviously is sucking the energy out of me. Why I called them that, I have no idea. I don't know if somebody heard it and I was like, that's cool. I like that. I get that. It resonates with me. But we have that, like what you said about the people that I don't send boundaries with, like I want to put my needs last. But what ends up happening is I end up losing my energy and who I am. So, somebody said it way better than me. I call them energy vampires. A guy named James Redfield, who wrote one of my favorite books, The Celestine Prophecy, which is actually fiction, came up with the coolest thing. He called them control dramas.
Oh, nice.
And he came up with 4 of them.
Okay.
And basically what they are is how we get energy from people. That's what they are. These control dramas are that. But they're also the negative relation, like a negative relational, like action and reaction. So kind of keeping that in mind. But he called the first one the intimidator. And obviously these are the people that are aggressive with us to get our reaction. And, those of us that get stuck in these relationships with intimidators and we're not setting boundaries, they are likely usually living in fear, but maybe we are too, but we're losing like our own self-respect in that process. So, if any of those are coming up, like that's maybe a sign that there is a control drama in that relationship and a boundary might be relevant. The interrogator.
We talk a lot about that in our Sources of Strength program. Actually, it made me think of that. We're looking at this diagram behind me here.
Okay.
And just kind of touching other places in your life. If you end up, when you and I were talking about this, it's kind of the bully, right? It's
the
person who doesn't want to be told no, or doesn't understand that they've overstepped the boundary. And you might find some help if you're strengthening other places in your life so that you feel a little bit more strengthened.
Yeah. And I'll say something about that after I like explain all those control dramas.
Go.
About like, it sometimes isn't going to be about the hard and fast, like, hey, no, stop that.
Yeah.
If it were that simple, we wouldn't be here today. There is more to, how we begin to set those boundaries. The second one that is talked about is the interrogator. These are the people who constantly like nag to the point where like you kind of just give in. To me, I always like to call them like the self-righteous question askers. Like, why did you do that? Like, if somebody just said to me, why did that happen? That's totally different. They just have this horrible self-righteous tonality. And, for those of us that are like in a communication with an interrogator, this control drama, particularly if I'm in it, I tend to lose my confidence.
Yeah, that's like your girlfriend who's really coming after you. Like, God, why did you cut your hair? I don't know, because
Where'd you get that dress?
Yeah. Thanks
Is
for
that a
the-
new suit? Did you do your hair this morning? Yeah.
Totally.
So like you said, Kat, it's about awareness. Like, how do we identify them? How do we know that they're happening? And then kind of cultivating how we're going to deal with it. The third one is the poor me. If you are one of these, you are my least favorite. Not my least favorite people, just my least favorite control drama to have to deal with, the poor me. This involves a person that is obviously projecting themselves as helpless or that they need constant care and attention. The reason I probably struggle with this one the most is because I want to help.
Yes.
So they really can sucker me in. And but on the same time, and the same token, they're also the one that aggravates me the most because I probably, and I don't mean that I am better than them, but I am self-motivated and I want to like, find a way out that like I probably don't understand a poor me character, which is probably why I want to run in and rescue. But many people overly are attached to people that fall into this category, which is kind of tough. And the last one is the aloof. The aloof one. These are the people that shut down when confrontation happens. They don't attempt to explain themselves, and they're keeping quiet forces me or the person they're trying to get the energy from to like try and win them over. Like, I'm doing the dance. Like, come on, what's going on in there? Tell me more. And like, I'm working really hard. Actually, a little neat note about this one. Men fall into this pattern a lot, frequently when faced with a female interrogator.
Oh, how interesting.
Yeah, kind of neat. So we have these 4 control dramas. And like I said, the book was fiction, but he talks about them and they were just so relevant to like real life that I love the way that he articulated them, that I've always been using it in coaching and talking about them, because knowledge is power. So how do we react to these people? Right? We said, okay, it's not the big, hey, no, stop there. Get out of my way. We begin to actually set boundaries by not giving them our energy. But in order to do that, we have to do the opposite of what they're trying to get. So an interrogator, and I'm known for this, if I'm being, interrogated, guess what I come back with? Interrogating energy.
Yes.
So when I show up with energy that they want to receive and the way that they're showing themselves, that's how I've let the boundary go away. That's how I've poured my energy into them. That's how they're getting full and I'm getting empty. So you actually do the opposite. If you find yourself in a relationship with somebody that's exhibiting these things, then you try not best to fall into their drama. I was thinking maybe like the aloof one. Don't work overly hard to figure out what they're not saying. The poor me, like, don't, go save them. And they're like, my day is so bad. They want you to be like, oh, I'm so sorry. If you're like, it's so sunny though. Did you see it? Like earlier it was cloudy. Now it's sunny. I'm super happy. And they didn't get it. They didn't get what they wanted from you. And that's one of the greatest ways to like start setting boundaries.
I think one of the things that came out of our relationships and the people that we realized who we were kind of hanging with, when our parents used to say to us when we were younger, are you paying attention to who you're hanging with? We were not necessarily hanging with anybody before, but now we are, and it might be a little bit more apparent whose energies are coming near us. And sometimes we might not even have control over that. Maybe it's at work where they're coworkers and we don't have control over saying, well, thank you for your time, but I'm not going to associate with you anymore. Don't we all wish? And ironically, that might be why a lot of people enjoy working from home, right? Because they can guard that energy a little bit better, the time sucking piece. of people that are just so draining, and they can't ever be happy, or they can't ever be whatever it is that is lacking in their life. I always say to people, well, clearly they're not getting their needs met. And people kind of look at me funny, but it's that kind of self-awareness. And I think it's when we look at other people and we can identify it so easily in another person, if we're struggling with our own boundaries, maybe it's our identity that is seeking comfort and pulling us back into bad habits, that wants us to, cater to the poor me, cater to the aloof, rather than saying, you know what, I know what I need, and this is what my identity is at. This is what I need to do to improve my identity. This might be the better answer for me. Not necessarily not dealing with them at all, but how to deal with them. Are you coaching a fair amount on identity and role?
Yeah, I mean, I think we end up talking about it all the time, whether I like title it that or not, in our coaching, like what I think what you're meaning is like the roles are all these things that I play, but my identity is like who I am, like in the deepest part of my soul, like who I am without all those outside factors and all the roles that I play. And I was actually just saying it to my sister. We were talking about it, and I'm like, when you are in that world of roles, I'm a daughter, I'm a wife, I'm a child, I'm, a coach, and whatever I am, if that day those things go good, then I'm good. If one day they go bad, then I'm bad. And that will always be the case. Some days there are, but if my steadiness, it's where I get my integrity. It's where I get all that emotional intelligence. Am I okay? Sorry, I think I had a
Yeah, you lagged just there for a second.
And so, sorry, I lost my train of thought. You were saying something about, identity, like, and how like working on ourselves and getting a strong identity is one of the greatest things that we can do. We're taking all this time to talk about boundaries, and we're going to talk a lot about the other person that we need to set a boundary with. But a lot of times when we're talking about this stuff today, people probably are saying to themselves, oh, that's me. I'm that one. And you know what? That's okay. We've
Absolutely.
all gotten there. Even in the book, when James Redfield talks about that, he talks about the fact that like we become, like you said, conditioned. This becomes our habit of how we get energy, how we give energy, how we receive energy, how we set boundaries, how we don't set boundaries. They're habits, they're built. But the ultimate goal is to be filled without having to take energy away from other people. And that's building our own identity. And maybe I see that I am one of those control dramas. I can work on that first. And then I am well suited to go, protect myself from a different control drama. So the work is a lot deeper than just, people are like, hey, can you tell me how to deal with that annoying coworker? We can talk about it, but unfortunately the work might be on you first.
Yeah. And right, this is such a fluid thing. And for anyone watching this video, right off the rip, let's just say congratulations to you for taking the time to actually invest in yourself and watch this. Pass it on to a friend who you know is struggling, because just in watching this and taking even a small piece of this video means you are light years ahead of people who are unwilling and not doing what it takes to better themselves or set a boundary that will make them better in the workplace, for their significant other, for their children, for themselves. So kudos to anyone who has listened to you and I chat like girlfriends for even as we've been going for this long. So acknowledge for yourselves taking the time to listen in on a training, read a book, invest in yourself is all that much more important for your own self-care. So that's huge. We did have an article on the oxygen coaching blog site recently about the Great Resignation, and it had a lot to do with generational shift. And it's interesting to me how in the workplace, the generational expectations of people will also present those energy vampires in different ways. You know, we have different generations coming back, their expectations of what people do or shouldn't do, or how they should show up in the workplace are different. And so for anyone looking to go back, you can check that out on the blog site on Oxygen Coaching. But I think that the other important piece on that is when you deal with an energy vampire, in my experience, it's not just a one-time occurrence. It happens to be something that is over and over and over again. In fact, that first time it happens, you might just think, oh, she's having a bad day. He's having a bad day. Didn't have enough coffee this morning. Woke up on the wrong side of the bed. But then all of a sudden you realize it's a pattern, and it actually happens over and over and over again. And that's when we kind of have to say, okay, maybe I need to deal with this person differently. Maybe I do need to set up a new boundary and have a little grace for ourselves again for solidifying how we're going to allow ourselves to be treated.
Yeah. Isn't it? It's hard to be self-aware sometimes. I mean, no joke, like to be like, oh, wow, that made me feel uncomfortable. Like sometimes, especially in work, we'll just slough it off. Not all of us. I mean, for some of us, it'll be emotionally really deep. For some of us, we just kind of slough it off and keep it on a surface level and go on. But over time, it's compounding, and it is a habit, and it is a relationship habit, and it is affecting us. And it'd be nice to fix those things before they blow up too.
Yeah. And it's not an accusation on your character. It has more to do with them. I learned this really great lesson from you, actually, when we started working together quite a few years ago, as you put the timeline on it. I'm sure we were both 29 years old and had no wrinkles and, all that when this happened. So, but I am the type of person who was under the impression that things were happening to me, almost kind of that poor me mentality, right? Beating my head against the wall. Why does this keep happening to me? What is it going on? And I think you were the first one who gave me this aha moment, this enlightening that said, things happen to you for a reason, and we always have the opportunity to move past them and ignore them. But whatever you believe in, a deity or the universe or whatever it is going to continue to put that obstacle in front of you until you learn the necessary lessons that you're meant to learn from them. So it's not so much that you're beating your head against the wall and causing this to happen for yourself. You just haven't learned the appropriate lesson yet. And it was such an enlightening moment for me, because I could see the cycles in my life of things, because I'm such a fast mover. Like if it doesn't fit in my life,
Sure.
bye, Gina, here we go. We're just going to keep on going. And the ability to slow down and actually, as I refer to it, plug your ears if there's children in the room, sit in my shit, is hard. It's hard to actually sit in that and learn the lesson.
Yeah, it was that. I mean, I'm glad it was significant when I shared it with you in some way that like resonated. But when I learned it myself, and I learned it from a coach way before wrinkles and children. I really did. I was probably like really in my 20s, not exaggerating for the sake of making us feel younger today. We were talking about boundaries, and she said, you're going to know. I'm like, well, how do you know? Where do you begin? And because that's kind of what we all do. Like, and someone really wise says, you'll know. you'll know. And she kind of said it like that, like, you'll know, you're going to see it. Now that we've made you aware of this, you're going to see it, and you're going to go out and you're going to know exactly where you're supposed to set this boundary. And I hope that my family listens to this, because this is really cute. I worked for my dad owned his own company for a while. And like 2 decades ago, I had worked for him. And when I was like done, ready to move on, I had trained my sister to kind of be my succession plan. And these two butted heads like no tomorrow, right? And we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but I like to help people. I like to fix things. So I know we'll get to this. So I was always like fixing it, teaching her what to do, how to deal with dad, telling dad like how to behave. And I wasn't even there anymore. And so I'm talking to my coach. She tells me, you got to start setting boundaries, Rose, blah, blah, blah. And she goes, you'll know. My dad calls me at my new job and says, hey, Rose, tells me this story about my sister. And he says, she quit. My sister tells me that he fired her. And whatever it was, I'm sure it was like the tiniest little issue. Okay. Right. And I literally felt like a light came down from heaven and was like shining on me. And I could hear my coach going, this is it. This is the moment, Rose. This is the moment you're supposed to say no. No. But you don't say no in this rude way. Like that's not what we're talking about when we're setting boundaries. So it's like, Dad, if I get involved in this, like that would be like me taking sides. I'm going to step out. Now, mind you, I do what my coach says, but she gave me a reminder, which is what you were just saying, Kat, that like the universe, God, for me, God is going to keep saying, are you serious? Are you serious about setting this boundary? Are you seriously going to do this work? And she said, Rose, I want you to be really cautious, because when you set this boundary, don't expect it to take the first time. You have been a part of this relationship. You have been a part of setting this precedent. You're the one that's about to change. Do not think that they are going to accept that you have changed. They're going to come back and knock on the door again.
Yeah.
Literally 2 more times a day. So 3 times in one day, my dad called again and said, did you talk to your sister? You need to fix this, Rose. And I said, again, trying to think of a nice way, nurturing way to say it. Dad, I can't be involved. First of all, you're a business owner, she's your employee, you're adults. You got this. You've got this. And then there was one more time. And I'm like, okay, no, I can't be involved. And I'm like, she was so right. Like, God is really going to ask you, like, are you serious about doing this? Are you serious about setting the boundary? And if you are, don't think it's going to happen a lightning bolt moment, because it is ingrained behavior.
Yeah, that's so true. I think that it's ironic that that's the story you tell. I think our family sometimes has a tendency to push our boundaries the most, but they also sometimes are the people that we trust too. And I think if you trust the wrong person trying to practice these sea legs, you'll get knocked down. And it's almost I don't want to misspeak here, but you push a boundary with the wrong person, and you're almost going to hurt yourself in attempting it. But in that case, it's almost safe to practice that boundary with your dad, right? Because that relationship is safe. It was the right thing for you. It was the right thing for your dad. So I think that you have to find a trusted person to practice some boundaries. And then once you get it now, I had a friend of mine tell me the other day, he said to me, you just tell people, nope, I don't need you. Nope. He said, but that's such a long, hard, tried and true path for me. And only in certain instances in my life am I comfortable saying I'm steadfast here. In other places in my life, I'm not so steadfast, but you have to continue to work it. And our our families are sometimes, and I think you and I are both very fortunate, not all families are like that, but you have to find those trusted people that you can maybe test those boundaries with to practice.
Absolutely. Like total disclaimer for today. Like anything we're talking about, don't go practice it on your boss.
Yeah.
Practice it on your neighbor first, yourself, your best friend. Tell her what you're going to do and just see how you sound. No, I mean, I think you bring up a great point. There are people we trust and maybe we shouldn't have in our life, and that's where the boundaries get skewed. There's people we trust and we should have because they're family members, but the boundaries still get skewed. It's it works all ways for sure.
Yeah. So, ironically, when we start talking about trust, I think we should talk about Cartman's triangle.
Okay,
What do you think?
for sure, because
You
it's
are way
totally
better.
relevant. What did you say?
This is a topic that's tried and true for you. I'm actually going to share my screen and hopefully we don't have any technical difficulties.
Nope, I see it.
Okay.
I see it. Everyone else will
So
see it.
tell us, because I know this is kind of more a specialty of yours, and I only do this on a very high level. What does Cartman's triangle mean to you, and how boundaries kind of get stuck amongst these three pieces?
Yes. So these three labeled people, characters, we'll call them characters. They're not real people today. They're just characters. The persecutor, the victim, the rescuer. These three types labeled here. And in this triangle is kind of the way that these three people interact. We're going to articulate it, but what this triangle really represents is that boundaries aren't clear. That is really what Cartman's triangle is. If you identify one and you're living in one or you're experiencing one, it means boundaries aren't clear. And these are the three characters that are playing in it. And basically, if you have these ingredients, we're going to get some answers like, am I in one of these? Am I in a Cartman's triangle currently? And how do I get out of it? And one of the greatest places I really kind of got to go a little bit deeper with Cartman's triangle. I mean, it's kind of like a secular, easily accessible, kind of comes from the world of like psychology and thought work. You can find it, anywhere. But I took this course. Love this woman. She does it here in Northeast Ohio. It's called Making Peace.
Ooh.
And she is, an amazing counselor. It's an amazing course. I recommend it to anyone. But what she really does well is she takes all this intellectual stuff that we're talking about and she can make it emotional and spiritual. So she does like really all three really well. And, this is kind of my training from her in this Cartman's triangle. But let me give a little bit of a story at least. So like people that have never seen this before can kind of understand what it is. I'll give you an example.
Okay.
Dad is kind of maybe what we talk about like as the persecutor. And, he's this bully energy and he does it to mom. Okay. And mom is the victim and she just takes it. And then there's this child that keeps rescuing them. Daddy, please don't do that. Mommy, come on, be stronger. And guess what? They're all playing a part of keeping each other going in this triangle. It's like when we were talking earlier, like, how do we get off this crazy train? This is the crazy train. And it doesn't mean that anybody on here is crazy. It's just crazy behaviors we want to get out of because boundaries aren't being set and it gets really uncomfortable. Or like in business, like a persecutor, and it's not always any of these examples I'm giving. I'm just trying to make them real life. If the owner of the business, is that bully persecutor mentality, and they're always picking on their low-level employee, say it's me, right? And, constantly like pinning them down, making them feel small, never good enough. And then there's this middle manager. Oh, don't worry about it. He's always like that with everybody. It's not you. Don't take it personally. They're rescuing this relationship and it keeps going. So I thought, like you said, you teach at high level. Like I'll kind of go high level from like my perspective on this. And that is, a persecutor, just some pointing out some characteristics of these people I thought might be helpful. What do you think?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. A persecutor keeps the victim in the victim position. They are likely very much like the intimidator or even the interrogator we talked about in the control dramas, right?
Yes.
That's kind of their like energy. That's how they have learned to be conditioned to fill themselves up. Victims always, which would be those poor me, woe is me types, they only can have two types of relationships. That is it. A victim can't even have a healthy relationship. They can either have a relationship with a rescuer or a persecutor. So if you ever find yourself like rescuing a victim and you stop, guess what? They don't need you because they can only have two types of relationships. I can't help them necessarily stop being a victim, but if I'm a victim, I can work on stop being a victim, or, if I'm on this triangle, I can get out of it. Just little quirky things that like Jamie really points out in Making Peace that like help us hone the skill of what am I in, what is happening, and maybe how can I get out.
I think it's really important to the family dynamic that you just gave an example of. If you find yourself in one of those roles, it may have a lot to do with how you were raised. So a lot of times in our coaching, we talk about your where you are in your family, where are you at in your birth order, where are you at in just your family dynamic as a whole. Maybe not your birth family, but your family. What would you identify as your family? What does that role look like for you and the people that you surround yourself with, either biologically or by choice? And what do those roles look like? I think a lot of that has to do with how you fall into potentially being the victim, being the persecutor, or being the rescuer. Same thing with the being a poor me, being an aloof, being an interrogator, or being an intimidator. It all kind of has to, unfortunately, it all starts to go like this, and you sit back and go, oh God, here we go.
Yeah. No, I mean, the third one on there, the rescuer, I am a recovering rescuer.
Yes.
I'm a recovering people pleaser. I get it. And it was my childhood conditioning. And so any of these things we're pointing out, like, it's not to say like people are bad, but we get in bad habits. We make bad choices. We get unhealthy, emotionally, spiritually, intellectually. That's what's happening. Now, I probably should say this and just in case, like, we are talking about all of this, like on a surface level where nobody is, being abused physically or mentally. Like, if somebody's looking at this and thinking, but what about this? Like, we are not talking about that today. We are talking about like, adults in relationships that, may not be the picture of like perfect health, but we're not addressing those today. Those are very serious and need to be handled like way beyond this. And like, I'm sure either of us would be happy to direct someone if they're feeling that, but I know we're getting into like some deep topics, and sometimes it really is a part of some of this stuff for people, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I didn't need to go there, but I needed to kind of make sure that I said that's not what we're addressing today.
Disclaimer for sure. And we say it a lot in our coaching firm, but awareness is the first step in so much of this. Just being able to say, oh my gosh, did that just come out of my mouth? Or, wow, I really did hear that person say that to me. And that's not the first time. I think maybe I need to take a step back, take a deep breath, and identify what is really going on here, and am I okay with this?
Absolutely. And to make us all feel not isolated. Like one of my favorite things to do in coaching is to make people feel like seen and heard and loved exactly where they are and not feel alone. You know, not having some of this information makes us feel really isolated. Like nobody else is dealing with this, or nobody else has experienced this, or nobody else has been in this. And
Which is the last 18 months.
right, we all have.
For such a community, right? We're looking to get back to community. The point in this video being, let's do it with some appropriate boundaries based on what we've learned about ourselves.
Yes. Yes. All right. So let's learn more about ourselves. So I said I was a rescuer.
Yes.
And a key characteristic of a rescuer, it's probably already obvious. They keep the relationship between the victim and the persecutor going.
Mm.
And sometimes it can be the aloof too, you know, but it's just, if you see, oh yeah, I know someone that's doing this to me and I keep doing this over and over again, you know, that's the awareness. We're in a Cartman's triangle. Another neat thing is, if you're in one, you will end up playing all of the roles. I'll go back to like the mom, dad, child. So if like dad, you know, makes mom feel like a victim, mom acts like a victim, child tries to rescue and fix it, and then they keep running. At some point, the dad's going to do something to like make the child get angry, like, I'm always helping you and now you're being mean to me. And now the child wants to be the persecutor and the dad's the victim, and the mom's going to come in and be like, don't be like that. And you will flip flop the roles, but you will just stay on this. So, you know, one of the things we even talked about when we were looking at the control dramas is like, how can we get out of it? Like, what's a simple thing we can do the opposite of what they're coming at us with? What, you know, I learned in Cartman's Triangle and Making Peace is something called break the circuit. And there is something, and I said, like, Jamie kind of Norton teaches it in a very spiritual way. And that is like how to break these circuits with something bigger and beyond just, you know, all of our self-help tools, right? So acceptance is the circuit breaker between a rescuer and a victim.
Mm.
So, and acceptance sometimes is maybe that it isn't going to get better, or acceptance that this person is this way and I need to make a change. So that is the circuit breaker that like kind of breaks the pattern of going around the triangle between a rescuer and a victim. Forgiveness is actually the circuit breaker between a victim and a persecutor. And of course, this forgiveness isn't to condone their behaviors as the persecutor. This is forgiveness to set yourself free.
Nice.
And then the last circuit breaker would be between the rescuer and the persecutor. And she says that's prayer. Like prayer to help me. And because I was, you know, like a rescuer quite frequently, prayer that I align with like what I'm supposed to do in this situation, not what like, you know, might remedy in a second or what might feel right, but like what living in that integrity, getting deeper, like what is really happening here. And like we said, this stuff can be happening in our personal, professional life, but knowledge is power, right? And knowing where we have these relationships and where the exit strategy is really important, or what part I play in them.
Absolutely. To identify those and to meditate or pray or whatever you need to do to be okay with yourself to embark on a day that's appropriate. I think that's, again, a way bigger step than a lot of people take to start their day. And you are light years ahead of the majority of the people that start their day off just grabbing a cup of coffee and throwing their kids out to the sitter or the school bus. So it's a great place to step off. And you and I both we'll talk about it at the end. There's tons of resources to get continued coaching and to dive a little bit deeper into some of these topics. If any of this kind of hits home and you say, oh my gosh, that's me, I think I need to talk. But we can do that again. I like how you were just referring to how to break the triangle. I think that is the tactical piece of understanding how each one feeds off of the other. We did the precursor video for this chat that you and I are having. We talked about the belief circle, and hopefully if all of our technology is working right, it's going to behave itself. This one is way prettier than the one I drew on the video, but a very similar concept, right? So we have our beliefs that feed into our judgments, that feed into our actions or lack thereof, and then feed into the results, which again, once we see a tactile result, it feeds back into our beliefs. And to break any one of those pretty yellow arrows that are on there, we have to stop what we've done in the past. We have to exercise those sea legs and say, hey, I'm going to break that arrow between beliefs and judgments and say, I don't believe that this is okay for me. I don't believe I want to be treated like this anymore. Or in a positive light, I believe I want my children to sit at my dinner table every night. Or I believe I want my children to sit at my dinner table more than once a month. And in that case, the judgment changes to, I believe it's good for us as a family to sit. I believe that it's better for my well-being if I'm not spoken to in this manner. I believe that my sales goals will be easier to hit if I do this rather than that. And that changes the action. Hey, I've posted the meals, I've set a time, I've changed my whatever you use to track your behaviors in terms of sales. And then the result changes itself. My children's happy faces and my grocery bill goes up another $50, however that is. And the belief is, I feel better about myself. Even if that's the self-serving moment, I believe that my children do actually like each other at 20 and 18. And that's where that kind of break in the cycle becomes visible. But we have to know that it's such a non-tactile thing, right? We can't touch it. No matter what kind of learner you are, what kind of person you are, if you like to touch it and put your germs on it and all that good, funny, feely stuff, this one is one where you just have to decide. I'm going to change my belief today that if I tell my kids this is my expectation and I set the dinner time and I make their favorite meal, we are going to have dinner 3 times a week. And this is going to be what changes. And it's going to break that arrow between beliefs and judgments. And I think the biggest change that you'll see is going to be between actions or lack thereof and results. What do you see when you see this belief circle?
Great question. I love your belief wheel. I love it. It's so awesome. I have something kind of similar that I use, but the one thing I think of is that action step, that's the hard part because we have to do it enough times to see it work. Just because we talked about this before, just because we believe it, just because we're changing the judgments on it and we're doing the actions to execute something new, doesn't mean we're going to get the results one time. That's why the belief part is so important. It's like saying no to my dad 3 times.
Yeah.
Right. And maybe the first time you try it, the meal doesn't go great, but the second time it goes a little better. And it's being true. It's integrity to self. It's real emotional intelligence. It's believing something new and going after it. And sometimes, boy, don't we wish that it was just one action and boom, this wheel just went seamlessly and you did it one time and it worked. But we know that even changing any behavior, it's not that fast and seamless, but it is this simple.
Yeah. I think that it's remaining true to what you know you want. And of course, you and I can easily say the best way to do this is to get a coach or really a friend. That back to the trust thing. Do this with someone that you trust. You know, if you are in a relationship with someone that you can trust and say, listen, I don't want to eat after 7 o'clock at night, or I need to not be consuming alcohol, or I want to get up half an hour early so that I can walk. You need to exercise, for no pun intended. Sorry, that was poor judgment.
Okay.
With who you trust. So if you don't have someone in your life like that, then maybe it is time for an accountability coach or a life coach, or reach out to your best friend, or I will plug your boss. I mean, I don't know your boss, but if your boss or your manager is worth 2 cents, they want what is best for you. And in most cases, they are trained to want better for you. So sometimes it's as simple as just sitting down with your manager and saying, hey, I feel like I need, now if they're the problem, don't listen to me. But in a lot of cases, you can sit down with your boss at work and say, this is what I'm working on for myself. And they want you to be healthy and well so that you can be productive for them.
Yeah. Yeah. And the more healthy they are, the easier this stuff is, you know. And
Yeah.
these are the relationships I want to start aligning with. This is kind of the litmus test in which I want to like judge my life against and see like, does this fit? Does this fit? Or my square peg round hole here? Like,
For sure.
and I'm certainly not condoning anybody to go quit your job tomorrow because your boss is the intimidator. But now you've got some tools and now you've got some awareness. What do I feel about that? What do I want to do about it? Right.
Exactly. We can't have more faith in you than you have in yourself. So you have
well said.
That. So what is next? We touched on IR a little earlier. Writing affirmations, which is definitely the next step, I think, based on all of the things that we talked about based on this. So for those of you who are new to watching videos for Claritas or for Oxygen, affirmations are going to be the question side of an affirmation. Affirmations are, I'm strong, I'm beautiful, I can do this. We've all seen the cute little toddlers standing in front of the mirror, exercising their muscles with their mom and dad. But affirmations lead us to questions. So why am I successful at my job? Why am I prepared for this meeting today? Why am I healthy? Why am I capable of running an extra mile? I personally have some really crazy mind games with myself when I am a runner. And I get to about 3.5 miles and I really have to start talking to myself. So, you know, why is your core strong? Why are your feet healthy? Why are your lungs strong? And rather than telling myself things that I already know, then I have to say, because you've worked out 5 days this week, you've worked your core, you've taped your feet, you've been working on your breathing, you're stepping every 5 steps, and all of a sudden you're like, hey, wait a minute, I got this, right? So affirmations are going to be the questions. Do you have a couple from today that might pop in your head just quick, Rose?
Yeah, sure. Why am I worth changing this? Or, yeah.
That's a great one.
Yeah.
Why that's into this video?
Yeah. You know, why is my life going to be so much better when I set boundaries? Healthy boundaries. Why am I going to be so much more productive when my boss and I have better conversations? My husband and I have better conversations. Yeah.
Yes. Why is this the time in my life to create a new boundary?
Ooh.
So those are just a couple of quick examples. We've covered a couple of really, really big topics here today. And the most appropriate piece feels like giving my audience and your audience the best place to schedule a coaching call and give them a place for further reinforcement. So I've popped those up on the screen, and you are welcome to join all of the groups. I will tell my audience right now, Rose has the absolute best, safe, warm Facebook groups for you to be a part of. Please go and join them and listen to all the love that she puts out in the world, because if you need a hug, she puts it out on Facebook every time she goes live. So go out there, and she's got an awesome new book coming out. So you want to be on the hot skids when that sucker hits the ground. And for all of my Oxygen peeps, you know, you can find everything on our YouTube channel. And I think we are pretty much done talking about boundaries for today, until maybe we agree to, you know, collaborate again.
Yeah, it was fun. I hope it was fun for everyone else.
Oh my gosh. I hope that everyone realizes that we are dynamic humans and we recognize nuance. So with that being said, the best thing for us to do is to take just a little bit of time to breathe life in.
I love that.
We'll chat with
All right.
everybody soon.
Thank you, Kat.
Bye-bye.